everyone. If you want to write for kids, or if you already write for kids, you're in for a treat because I have one of the experts with me today. I have Sylvia Liu. She is an award-winning picture book and middle grade author, and she's also one of the co-founders of Kidlit411. So we all know how important that is to writing Kidlit. And if you don't know, you're in for a treat because you'll hear all about it today and all of the things that Sylvia has learned about our topic today, which is writing is a team sport. And I know some people say, no, I'm an introvert. I write on my own. And that can be true too, but it doesn't have to be. So if you want to dig in and get involved, you can. Or if you just want to lurk and learn that way, you can do that too. So welcome, Sylvia.
Hi, Cindy. Thank you so much for having me.
You're
This is actually one of my favorite topics to talk about because I feel like it's really been the key to like everything that was, helped me get published, basically.
I totally agree, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad you dug into this idea with me. Tell me a little bit about you first, and then why this topic is so important to you, and how important having teammates is in the writing industry and Kidlit in particular.
Sure. That's a big question.
Yeah,
So
it
anyway, so I'm Sylvia Liu. I am a middle grade and picture book author, but this is really my second career. My first career was as I was an environmental attorney doing public interest law. Um, for about 10 years, I was mainly doing work related to protecting the oceans. And so I worked at the Department of Justice and a nonprofit group called Oceana. And then when my kids were young, I decided to quit the law and go back to one of my original loves was actually drawing, painting, art. And at the time when my kids were young, I was reading picture books to them. I got really excited about the idea of becoming a children's illustrator. So this
is.
was like many years ago, and I, joined SCBWI. I, took classes. I tried to basically build up my portfolio. And that kind of actually, the more I read, as an illustrator, I wanted to like, it got me excited to write my own story. So I started to learn how to write picture books, and that um, basically, I was introduced to 12 by 12, Julie Headland's wonderful community of picture book writers back in 2012, which is how that started. And and then I also started taking classes writing like longer novels, and I found that I really enjoyed that. And I had a, like I found I had traction with like a middle grade voice. And so I started writing that, and that's what I eventually got my agent for, middle grade science fiction, Hannah Shue and the Ghost Crab Nation. And so I did get a picture book published, but I'm mainly writing middle grade books now. um,
That's great. Now, I have a question for you. Are your kids middle grade age now?
no, they are
No.
like one's out of college and the other one's a
Oh,
senior in
okay.
college.
Because
So
I've seen a lot of other authors who start out when their kids are in picture book age writing that, and then they kind of move along with their kids. So I was just curious if
yeah,
maybe
so I was like writing along with them, but by the time they got published, like my picture book came out when they were like in sixth grade, and my middle grade
okay.
came out when they
Yeah.
were in like junior high and high school. So at this rate, I have to write like adult mysteries or something.
Right, right. Oh, that's
Oh,
very cool. So tell us a little bit about Kidlit 411 and how that got started. And then you can tell us about why that community proves how important having teammates is in the
okay.
writing
Yeah,
and illustrating. I keep saying writing, but illustrating too.
I'm going to go back actually a little bit to
Okay.
your first question where you had asked about just community in general, and then I'll
Yes.
get to Lit for one.
Perfect.
Because what happened was, I told you my journey, and like during the years when I was trying to become an illustrator, that was a little bit like before there were a lot of communities online, and there was SCBWI, but you only kind of met once a year, in the regional conferences. And
Uh-huh.
so during that time, I really like I think I committed a mistake that a lot of beginning writers do is that you have one idea and you're just enamored by it because you're inspired by something, in your life or whatever. I had one environmental experimental story I wanted to tell. And so I must have spent years, working on that story, like
Yes.
both the art and the writing. And I essentially ended up spinning my wheels because I didn't have people, looking at it from outside, so I was only trying to like basically improve it by myself. And it was really when I found 12 by 12, which was the first time, I was sort of like really involved in a very active community. That's when I basically found my first picture book critique group. And, it's a group of people they were all at the same level. We were all starting non-agented, but, basically over the years, everybody got an agent, everybody started getting published, So it's a way that you can really grow together when you find someone, as a, critique partner. And that sort of also led to the creation of Kidlit411 because Elaine Kiley Kearns was in that picture book group together with me. So basically, we met each other early 2012, I'd say. And by the end of the year, like beginning of 2013, she had the idea of like, well, we always like we're sharing, you read articles online
Yep.
and like here's a craft article, here's, how to get it, how to query, whatever, right? And so she had the idea of like, let's put it all together in one like website because we're always like sharing it and let's just share it with other people. And so I sort of helped with the like visual design of it, and that was her idea. But we basically since then, I guess it's been 12 years now, that 13 years,
Wow.
where basically it's grown. So basically, Kidlit 411 is a resource website for people, children's writers and illustrators, and YA. And it's sort of organized just by like topics, and every topic has just hundreds of links. So there's a topic on like how to query, another topic on like, writing tips for novelists, another one on like marketing or whatever. And then once a week, we for a while we did like spotlight interviews on like authors and stuff, but that got to be really time consuming. So now we just do book giveaways, which basically helps promote one or two books every week. And so it's been a great. And then we have a companion Facebook group, which has really grown. And it's very active. People are very helpful. The thing that's great that I found in this community, in SCBWI, in like all sorts of these kidlit communities is that people are so generous. So I think the children's community is one of the few communities where like you go to like a conference and you have like the top, popular, most successful people, in your industry
Yeah.
still coming to these conferences and still giving back, So
Isn't it
uh,
crazy? I agree. And I often wonder if it's like that in other, like in adult writing, and I kind of doubt it, but it amazes me all the time, all what people do just to give back and just out of their goodness of their heart, even though we're all kind of, I suppose we're competing for the same shelf space, but it seems like a community. Like you use
yeah,
that
no,
word
for
and
sure.
that's perfect. It is a community. So, and you had some really interesting things that I know people understand about critique partners and they understand about, watching webinars and this and that. But you listed for me a whole lot of other ideas for community and for getting people to work together in this process. So tell me a little bit about some of those other ideas.
Okay, I'm gonna probably forget the ones I told you or mentioned.
No, it's good. It's all good.
But so I guess so first of all, there's like the online, sort of critique groups you can find,
Yeah.
What happens is if you're active in any sort of a lot of people find their online sort of friends like through different ways. It could be like, on Instagram or formerly Twitter or Facebook or wherever you sort of gather to talk about, your writing.
Mhm.
Pretty soon you sort of end up meeting people you like, or like one of my favorite stories is or like if you do happen to I'm kind of jump around a little bit, but
Good.
um but like if you do have a contract and you're about to be published, oftentimes there's a whole group of authors that will be like, we're the debut class of
Right.
2026 or
Yes.
2027. And, oftentimes these groups are very large and they'll have like, lots of age groups, like both YA and middle grade, or, the picture book ones tend to be separate. But when you're in those like forums, you'll start to like, find people who are sort of kindred spirits. And so then you can form smaller groups. You can start like sharing, like, let's critique each other's work. Let's,
Yeah.
and then that's how you build like those kind of relationships. So that's sort of, I would say, the organic way, but you can also, and I've also gotten like really great critique partners through like when you sign up for a writing workshop or a writing, webinar or something. Inked Voices, for example. I don't know if you are
Yes.
familiar with them.
Yes, I
So
remember. Yes.
so they're really great because they have classes that are usually led by like an agent or an editor. And so you get that feedback. But oftentimes, from those classes, you might be in a group of, let's say, 8 or 10 writers and you critique each other's works. Well, after the class finishes, maybe there's 2 or 3 people that you really connected with. So then you can
Yes.
continue after the class, to share with each other. Um, there's also mentorship programs. That's something that like I've been a huge sort of fan of, and I think is really important. What happens is like all of these critique groups, it's oftentimes easy to find people who are at your level, which is
Mhm.
great because you can grow together.
Right.
But sometimes what you want is someone who is a little bit more ahead of you and who can give you like the advice to like how do you level up? How do you make, this manuscript really shine?
And that's a really good point too, because it's still fresh in their mind, right? They just went through it, as opposed to getting someone who's, been doing it for so long that to them it's just second nature and they don't, they can't help you quite as much sometimes. I love that.
Right. And so I think, unfortunately, I think about like 5 years ago, there were a lot more sort of organized mentorship programs. Like, there were like Pitch Wars, Author Mentor Match, Picture Book. I think there's still Picture Book Rising Stars, maybe still
I'm
around.
not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are like, and then there's the ones that are geared towards if you're in an underrepresented minority, like We Need Diverse Books has mentorships, Las Musas, which is for Latino authors and creators, they have it, so there's different sort of subcategories, but if you can find one of those and, apply for it, it's often, there's 2 benefits from it. One is like, you just have the experience of like putting together your work, querying it, making it presentable.
Yeah.
Um, and then if you land the mentorship, that's great. You'll get that exciting, like help. But a lot of these kind of mentorship application processes are pretty social. So you'll actually meet other people who are in the same boat.
Oh, yeah, so much good stuff. So much good stuff. I really like hearing about. And the other thing that I've thought about a lot and that has helped me over the years is contests.
Mhm.
Some of the contests that I'm trying to think. Susanna Hill has the Halloween Z or the
Yeah.
holiday. I can't remember the exact name of them.
Yeah,
And
she has some great ones. Every major holiday, I think, like Valentine's Day,
yeah,
Halloween.
right,
Yeah.
Valentine's. Yes,
Basically, yeah, I love her contest because there's a lot of like community around that, and you just get to like practice your, craft.
for
And then
sure.
like the prizes are things like you get a critique or, um, so yeah, there's those contests. There's also like I think there's one going on right now called the Fall Frenzy, so there's different online ones like that.
Well, and
Um,
not only, like you said, it helps you, even if you don't win anything, it helps you, you have to go through those steps to be able to even apply. And so you've learned a lot along the way. The other thing that helped me right at the beginning with Susanna's contest was I wasn't ready to put myself out there yet. I was still nervous about it, but it seemed like I was kind of invisible. I could put my story out there and nobody knew who I was anyway. So I wasn't going to be embarrassed. You know what I
right.
mean?
And the nice thing about hers is like they're very short. You only write like 50 words or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
right?
right. Yeah,
So you can come up with 50 good words.
yeah. So it was a good way to jump in before I was ready to join a critique group or get involved with any of the online, put myself out there visibly. So there's all different levels of ways to do that. So
Right.
That's great.
And so then the other thing I was going to mention is there's a lot of like also communities that like, you can sort of, they're membership communities. So you can pay to have
Yeah,
access to these communities. So like, for example, 12 by 12
right.
is a paid program now, but I think it's so worth it. It's something that, it's just for people who want to write or illustrate picture books. And it's so well organized. The idea is you write 12 drafts in 12 months. Because that's the other thing like that I learned from my early days is like you shouldn't work on just one, manuscript for
Yeah.
3 years, right? You've got to like keep producing a lot of things because out of the 12 that you write, maybe one has, good potential.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, that started in response to Story Storm, which used to be called
Oh,
Pibo
right.
Inmo or something, and
Yep.
Tara Lazar's organization. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so that's great. I mean, so these are all these like community challenges that kind of created organically and they've like flourished. And hers was, I think it was January of every year. Her idea
Mhm.
was like picture book writers come up with one idea a day, picture book idea month, or then story storm.
Yeah.
And every day there was like a guest, she ran it on a blog. So there'd be a guest speaker or a guest post, and she'd give away prizes. And so the idea was out of those 30 ideas, now in 12 by 12, you can, work on, your story ideas and make them into stories. So other like sort of kind of mentorship, membership programs like that have a great community. There's another one called Kids Comic Unite for
Yeah.
graphic novels. And so that's wonderful because it's like, people who are working on graphic novels, scripts, art, and all of these like sort of programs have a ton of resources. So they give you like webinars and, community members and places to like, exchange your work or whatever, you know.
They do, right. And the other part of that for me is that I love to watch YouTube videos and webinars, but there's so much information out there that sometimes it just boggles your brain and you don't know where you're going. But some of these paid programs, you know, give you one step at a time. So slow down, and go through the
Right.
steps instead of just taking in all this information and not knowing for sure what to turn to. That brings up another something I wanted to say about Kidlit 411. The resources there are just so broad, as you mentioned before. But the interesting thing that I find is I can go back to an article that I read 2 or 3 years ago, and it hits me differently than it did then because I'm in a different place in my writing, right? Or I'm writing
Right.
something different or whatever. So, you know, having all that stuff that's there forever that we can go back to. Oh, I remember reading an article that helped me, and I'll go back to that later, is just so wonderful. And folks like you and Elaine who do that out of the goodness of your heart. And, it's not a paid program. So it's just there to benefit us. And that's one of the first things I tell people. I tell them to join SCBWI if they want to write or illustrate for kids. And then I tell them to go to Kidlit 411, the website and the Facebook community. Because, like you mentioned, people can just ask a question on the Facebook community and say, oh, what do you think is better, this title or this title? And, just you have other people. And it's also, like I said, a way for people that are a little afraid to put themselves out there. They can do it that way without really, being all that visible. So,
Right. And the nice thing, as I was kind of alluding to in the Facebook group, is that we have people who are real experts in the community. We have like agents and editors and, like very well published authors. And so they will give good advice, because there's a lot of people who are starting out new and are like, oh, what should I do about this? And there's a lot of great advice. Um,
so much, and quick too. I mean, you put a question in there, sometimes in the matter of an hour, you've got 50 answers of, oh, I think you should try this or try that. So yeah, it's
I guess the other thing that I would also mention is we have two companion Facebook groups pages. One is Kidlit 411 Manuscript Swap. That's more active than the other one's Illustrator focused. But what's good about that is a place for people to find other people to share and swap their work with to critique. And the way it works, it's like an old classified ad system. Like you're not actually exchanging your work there, but you basically put a post and say, I have a 500 word picture book about, trees. Who would like to read it? And then underneath, there'll be like three people who will be like, I'll swap, I'll read it.
It's perfect. And in that way, sometimes when you have critique partners and you have to wait a month till it's time to submit your manuscripts, if you need somebody, like for instance, at one point in time, I had an agent who wanted to see extra work, right? They had seen one manuscript and they wanted to see three more. So I quick got on and said, will anybody look at these for me and tell me which of these three you like better? And that was able
Exactly.
to help me, and it was quick, and I didn't have to wait for my critique slot in a month or whatever.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
lots of great, and the accountability too sometimes, with groups, with critique groups, or with your marketing, like your the oh, what am I trying to call it? We have a debut group that for my first
Yeah.
book, and we're
Sort of
still
like,
together, and we still, and it's that accountability there too. I told him I was working on this. I better get it done so that I'll have it ready to show him when we get together. So that accountability piece I think is important too.
yeah, so basically we've mostly talked about like critiques, but the accountability and actually just general support and friendship, I think that's a whole area that, you don't even need like all these writing friends to help you with your critiques. You just need your writing friends to be there with you, as part of your journey. And so like that happened a lot with like my I had a debut group, for my middle grade, and it sort of happened right in the middle of the pandemic. So we were
Oh,
on Zoom a lot. There was a subset of middle grade authors who we basically ended up doing just like writing sprints together, where we would be like, okay, let's check in every hour, and that core group of people, we ended up creating afterwards the co-marketing group, Middle Grade Authorcade. And so we're like 15 or 16 authors now, 15 now, all of middle grade. And, so we
nice.
do a lot of now we're all friends. We do retreats together, so it's great.
It can just lead to one thing leads to another and work together, but that camaraderie, like you mentioned, is so huge because this is a tough industry, we all know, and there are things you're going through that, probably everyone else is going through too. We all get rejected. We all have, you know, times when we're blocked and can't figure out where to go with something, and just having other people to turn to is just so, so important.
And if you can, like, if you do live in a place that like is a large enough city that has like a regional, SCBWI influence or, local writing classes, I really encourage you also to connect with local writers because like then you can just meet someone for coffee and, just have a friend for lunch. You don't even have, that's also a great, like part of the community.
Totally, totally agree. So, okay, let's talk about you. Let's talk about your writing. I want to get those out there too.
Okay. Yeah. I guess. Well, so I basically these are my published books. I'll just quickly flash them. These are
Oh,
A
I
Morning
love
with Grandpa. So
that.
that I was one of my 12 by 12 manuscripts, and I submitted it to Lee and Low. They have an annual contest for new voices, so people who aren't published or agented. So this was early, and then I got it published in 2016. That was the prize for winning
Oh,
that contest.
oh, wonderful.
Then Hannah Shue Nation is the book that I got my agent for, and it's my middle grade sci-fi debut. And so it's sort of a dystopian story about in the near future, kids when they turn 13, they get their brains connected straight to the internet,
Oh,
and which isn't that like sci-fi anymore, I don't think.
yeah, isn't that terrible?
I know. So anyway, but this girl is 12 and she is about to get connected and she basically learns of a corporate conspiracy against her friends and herself. And so it's like a adventure thriller. Um, and then with Scholastic, I have these cute animal friendship stories. manatee's best friend and near and dear. This is a environmental story. A girl wants to save manatees in Florida, and this is a girl in Virginia whose dog befriends an abandoned fawn.
Oh,
And she just wants to keep in control, so she thinks she can take care of the fawn by herself, but kind of chaos ensues. Um, but the other thing, the book that is coming out in February that I'm super excited about, this book called Stealing the Score. It's a World Cup theme soccer mystery. So
oh, I
it's
have to get that for my grandsons.
yeah, so like, I'm totally interested and into international soccer and the World Cup. And so this is three 13-year-olds who basically one's like a competitive player. The girl is an online gamer, soccer gamer, and another boy is a social media influencer. So they're all interested in soccer in different ways. And then
Love that.
there's this international soccer star that goes missing, and so they have to like basically get together to solve the mystery and find this guy. So
Love it. Love it.
yeah.
Sounds awesome. Well, I have a question that I like to ask everybody. And if do you have one favorite moment as an author that you would like to share? Something that
Um,
just happened and was really special to you, or just a memory of some sort.
um, I guess I don't have any like I have so many great memories, but when you said that question, the things that pop into mind are like the school visits that I go to. And
Right.
like last spring, when Near and Dear came out, I went to one of my local schools because it's Scholastic, so it's the Scholastic Book Fair. So one of the
Awesome.
cool things was that the case header had the dog and the deer like in a big cardboard cutout.
Oh,
So that was
oh
exciting.
yeah.
And then it was just really great because like I spoke with the a large auditorium and everybody was really enthusiastic, and it was just like one of those like perfect school visits, and kids came up afterwards and wanted my autograph or a hug, and it just makes you feel like a superstar.
Love it. Absolutely does. I love it. Love it. Well, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd like to tell us about, or a tip,
Um,
or anything else?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So I like, yeah, find community where you can, like you can do it online, you can find classes, you can and join these communities. You can do it alone, but it was really only once I started connecting with community that I really felt like like prospered. And the thing is, it's people don't like to hear it, but actually networking does kind of help and does,
Sure.
work. Especially, I would say when you're querying, when you're trying to get an agent. I mean, it helps to like sort of get yourself a little bit known. Like if you go to conferences with agents, or if you go to like for example, there like Inked Voices is a way where you can work with agents in a small group. Or my own agent is with Andrew Brown Literary Agency, and they do an annual or sometimes twice a year conference where I don't
Fabulous.
know if you've been to them.
I
Yeah,
have
so
been to
they're
Big Sur.
amazing.
It's fabulous.
Yeah, so they do it in Big Sur, both in California and on the East Coast. And, as you know, it's like small groups of writers that you work with an agent. And so the thing is like I credit that a lot, that because I met my agent during one of those, and I still had to query her, of course.
Yeah,
But the fact that she knew me and had worked with me for 3 days, like,
yeah,
you've got to think that the agent will spend a few more minutes on your query than a query that they don't know,
for
from a
sure.
hole in the wall, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, for sure. I love conferences, going to highlight, especially I've been to different SCBWI conferences that they were all wonderful in different ways, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's because of the people you connect to, sometimes it's because of the agents or editors that you're able to see, but um, putting yourself out there and doing that, like you said, connecting is to me the answer to the
Right.
whole
And
thing.
I do think like, for example, speaking of conferences, like going to the large ones like the New York one or whatever, they are beneficial, but I found some of the ones that are the best are
Yeah.
the ones that are really craft focused. So like if you can find a writing conference where you're getting feedback, so Highlights has a lot of those,
Yes.
Best Book Marin, Whispering Pines, there's a lot of
Yes.
different ones that like are focused on like putting you with someone who will give you really great feedback.
For sure. And I, again, now have friends that I met at Highlights that I have a little group with. And so, it just depends on who you meet there and what kind of a
Right.
connection you can keep with them later. So,
And almost every one of these, I know it's like not everyone has the resources to go and travel and go to these
right.
conferences, but almost every one of these have like scholarships and stuff. So,
And online options too.
right,
So, yeah.
exactly.
Thank
So,
you so much. I really appreciate it. So much good information and inspiration for people. I know it's going to help them to step out there a little bit more.
yeah,
So
thank you,
thank
Cindy. I
you for
mean, we were
joining me.
talking at the beginning before we got on the video on how we know each other so well yet, and it's just through these online communities.
That's right. And sometimes it's hard to remember, have I met you in person? I don't even know because I feel like I know you so well. So
Right. So,
thanks so much. Have a great day, Sylvia.
thank
Talk to you
you.
later.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.